What's good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation First and 10, your go-to source for Raider news and analysis, your weekly podcast for all of those things. I'm Vinny Bonsignore. I cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation. To my left is my great colleague, Adam Hill. He also covers the Raiders and everything else for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation. And before we get to the podcast, which I'm going to talk about the team getting out on the grass, maybe some uniform change, numbers changes, but also some potential tinkering with the roster and what areas we think that maybe the Raiders should look to. Just want to remind everybody that all of Vegas Nation podcasts are brought to you by the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Station Casinos, STN Sports, and we thank them for all of their support. Adam Hill, free agency is basically done. There might be a move here or there. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they're always obviously in the mood to try to get better, so they're never going to think that they're complete or that this roster is complete. I would expect changes coming, but we're going to talk about what positions they may target and some names out there that whether we think or don't think they make some sense. But free agency is basically in the books. The draft is in the books, and as we look ahead to this roster, what area would you think that might need a little bit of tinkering right now?
Linebacker and corner. I think still you're kind of looking in those areas for sure in terms of what you want to do. And again, it's all about what the plan is. I mean, I think there is a plan to make sure that you're competitive in the short term, but you're really trying to build a foundation for a winner long term. There is, I don't love the theory. I think we talked about this of just doing everything you can to try to maximize your potential this year. I think every decision should be about the future, but I have come around to understanding why that is a good thing, why potentially trying to get to that, middle of the pack is a good first step toward building a winning culture.
Correct.
And I think that's what they're trying to maybe do right now. I hate it because I think you would rather be 3-14 than 8-9. But I understand those processes and why those could be a valuable thing. And so if that's what you're looking to do, which it does seem like that's what the Raiders are trying to do, and I don't think they're as bad as the odds say they are right now, because the odds would say they're one of the worst teams in the league. I don't believe that at this point, because I think they've done a good job.
Big for Adam.
Yeah, because I think they've done a good job of, again, I hate it, but I think they've done a good job of raising their floor, right? And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do at this point. So you look around and say, like, some of these veteran guys that are potentially available for a year, maybe two, I would say, why would you do that?
Well, I'm glad you
But
go ahead.
It seems like that's what they're trying to do.
Well, to some extent, yes, and they already have. But here's where it gets a little bit tricky, and where the now and the long term can kind of have there could be some conflict there. And a name that I keep hearing about from the fans.
Is it Jalen Ramsey?
No, we'll get to Jalen too. And there's a lot more reasons than that. There's money involved. There's draft pick compensation that would be involved. But before we get to Jalen, another veteran player and very familiar with Raider fans, and that's Amari Cooper. And I don't know what the Raiders' thinking is on Amari Cooper. I've tried to dabble in that a little bit, or nibble around that a little bit. Haven't really gotten any kind of answers, but. I would say this. Let's just talk specifically about Amari Cooper. You didn't mention wide receiver. It seems like there's a notion out there that the Raiders need more additions at wide receiver. And while that might be true, I don't necessarily think that should be the case for a starting player right now. If I'm the Raiders, this is my 2 cents, and I'm curious what Pete Carroll and John Spytek would think about this. You just added Jack Besh as a draft pick, who, by all accounts, is probably in line to start this season. Yeah. Okay? So when you talk about Amari Cooper, I get the emotion, I get the connection and the nostalgia, but why would you want to impede Jack Besh right now by bringing in Amari Cooper, who, by the way, is, going on 31 years old? He would be more of a impediment, I think, than an actual upgrade. For all we know, Jack Besh could provide exactly what Amari Cooper provides right now, plus with the idea of a future. So I don't see it. I don't know what the Raiders are thinking along, in terms of that. I'd be surprised if he was, because when we know Pete Carroll, he wants his wide receivers to be engaged in a blocking game, be tough, be physical. I'm not sure that's Amari Cooper's game, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. Again, I think there has been some mixed signals on exactly what the plan is, and so if the plan, which I think it should be, and I think they've done a good job, they just drafted 2 receivers, 2 very, very different receivers.
3 if you think Tommy Millott,
sure.
who they're the future.
Yeah, more of a gadget guy that
sure.
I think could be I think it's a great pick at that point in the draft. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But they drafted 2 receivers that you think are going to be impact players right now at wide receiver, and we'll see what happens down the road. But I think that's the guys you want to play. I think you should be doing every decision you make should be about winning games right now in 2028.
Right, and those 2 guys, and it's kind of a proven fact, especially recently. Young players come into the league and help you right now. Puka Nacua is the latest example, and I know he gets compared to, or Jack Besh gets compared to him. Maybe there's some similarities there, but
I should before going, I meant 2027. So I don't want to go too far. 2027. I was trying to, in my mind, I'm like, what year are we in? But 2027, not 2028. But yes, I think it should be about the future. And does bringing in a guy like Amari Cooper, who I do think is an upgrade right now, today, week 1.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the point of going all in on trying to win week 1? You're trying to develop these guys and trying to be good down the road and try to build a sustainable winning culture for the future. Why impede the progress of those guys? I think that should be the message. That should be the direction that the franchise is
going.
Now,
if the Raiders didn't do what they did in the draft, then I can absolutely see it.
Sure.
If you didn't hit on some of those notes, which they obviously did, then okay, Amari Cooper makes way more sense at that point. I don't believe it does at that position. You mentioned cornerback, and specifically, I think nickel cornerback is the big concern right now. Darnay Holmes would be the penciled-in starter. I think that Thomas Harper, who the Raiders brought in at the end of training camp last year, the Chargers tried to sneak him through waivers. The Raiders were hot on his trail. They pick him up. He played slot cornerback in addition to safety at Notre Dame. I actually think that he profiles pretty decently at that position. But between those 2, I think the Raiders, and they signed an undrafted free agent, or will sign an undrafted free agent from Kansas, who might have some nickelback in him as well. But now there's a position that I could see maybe bringing in a veteran after you kind of get a look at what you have here in these next few weeks during when OTAs start in mid-May, May 19th, I think, to be exact, and the phase 2 that they're currently in. If you decide, hey, it's not going to happen with these 2 guys right now, or whoever is in that equation, might need to go out there and bring in a Mike Hilton, who's coming off a pretty decent season. There it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I don't mind, and especially veterans that are good locker room guys, good leaders, good guys that are going to help your younger players develop. Because again, if you're going to notice a theme, every single thing that I reference in terms of what they should be doing is about the future. And
Correct.
So, if you're going to bring in a guy that's, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to get my money, and I'm going to be the guy. And
who are we talking about?
I don't know. But if you're going to bring in those kind of guys, I don't know the point of that for this team. Because I just don't think they are 1 or 2 pieces away from winning a Super Bowl right now. I think this is all about building a very sustainable winning culture.
I agree.
And so it's, hey, if you're going to bring in a guy for 1 year or even 2 years, even if they're really good and they're going to be starting, it's going to be guys that are going to be helping my young guys get better and helping them progress and being a part of that, build. And so that would be the guys I'd be looking at. And we're not always privy to all those things. We know some of those things, and we know some of the guys around the league who are like that, but we don't always know.
No.
So, I mean, but that would be, if I was in the Raiders front office, that'd be the guys I'd be talking to. That'd be the guys I'd be looking at. That'd be the guys I'd be bringing in, because I do think they did a very good job on day 2 and 3 of the draft of just bringing in younger players who are going to be able to develop and come a long way. Having 11 picks helps. That's why you trade down.
Sure.
But, I mean, you bring in a lot of guys, and you're going to have some of them are never going to work out. Some of them aren't going to be on the team.
No doubt.
So that's just the reality of the situation. But some of them are going to develop into very good players, and you want to give them every chance to be able to do that. And I would not be wanting to bring in guys that are going to hinder that development.
Absolutely not.
If I'm going to be making these signings. If you're saying, yeah, but we could win another game this year, don't care.
Right.
I don't think that should be the goal. And I think on some of these decisions,
I don't even know that Amari Cooper over Jack Besh.
I do think he's better right now. And I think he'd be, he's a very, very good player. But again, it's about what sacrifice are. I mentioned, and man, people did not like the term opportunity cost from the first couple of shows after the draft. But the opportunity cost of bringing in Amari Cooper is that you're taking reps away from some of these younger receivers.
Yeah, you have to look at it like that.
And so I just don't, I just don't think that would be necessarily the most prudent thing to do. I don't think, and I know it sucks for fans because every Sunday you just want to show up and watch the team and hope they win, right? But I think the ultimate goal is to build everything sustainably for the future.
Right, and that's not in every single building out there.
No.
There's other buildings that are further along in their process that could use maybe an Amari Cooper, and it makes way more sense for there than it does here with the Raiders. All right, let's move on to linebacker. As of right now, they do have their two starters, Landon Roberts and Devin White. I would expect that this is a Raiders team that's going to play two linebackers and often one linebacker because of the way everything is set up. They're going to bring in a third safety. You'll see that a lot. So your biggest concerns with linebacker, is it because you don't have confidence in Landon Roberts and Devin White, or is it more what's behind them?
Yeah, it's what's again my theme, as I said, it's what's next. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think those are the guys in the future who are going to be the guys that, I mean,
none of them.
It's hard to say. It's a weird case. He's a weird case because he's certainly not what he was.
No.
But he's also not.
Oh, you're talking about the starters.
He's also not that
old.
The
starters are no, he's 27.
But he seems like he's very old.
He does.
Like, it seems like his best days are behind him, but they're not necessarily. Like,
right.
It could be. He's a weird case.
And Pete has a special way of sometimes getting it out of you, and
I think that's that's obviously a Spy Tech guy, and I think there's something that he
comfort
believes.
level.
Same with on the other side that we're talking about when we talk about Alex Kappa, and people are like, he might have been the worst player in the NFL last year. Yeah, but Spy Tech has been around him and understands him and believes in him. Like, I think he knows better than us. Like, it's tough to say that sometimes, but like, he knows him better than us. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't just say he sucked, so he's no good.
Right.
Well, why did he see something in him? Why did he believe in him? There's something there. And I think the same thing goes with Devin White, who looked like he was going to be one of the best players in the NFL. Then all of a sudden it's like, what happened? But he's not old yet.
Right.
So I think like that is a possibility. He's there for the future. But I think my biggest question at linebacker is not necessarily those guys, because I think they're capable players and they're fine. But again, it's what's after them.
Yeah.
And are any of these guys that they brought in as developmental guys going to be the guy that's there for them again, 2027, 2028?
And you're talking about your Lindenbergs, your Eichenbergs, your Bernies, your Amari Gainers.
Yeah. Are those the guy
that
are going to be able to develop and be next? I don't know. But I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more added to that group in terms of who can develop. The more players. Again, that's what we talked about. You had 11 players because that's more chances for guys to develop. The more guys you bring in, the more chance you have for somebody to develop.
So would you be more – because here's my thing on linebacker. We've mentioned Mike Hilton at cornerback. We've mentioned Amari Cooper. You could throw in Allen, the former Chargers wide receiver. For the same reasons I don't like Cooper, I wouldn't like Allen. But let's throw some names out. I don't even know that there's anybody – in a terms of a development linebacker or a veteran linebacker that's really out there that's so compelling that the Raiders have to go get.
I don't necessarily think so. Yeah, again, if you do think you have the guys and they've brought in bodies, if you do think the guys are there, then that's fine. It's just more. The more bodies you have, the more chance you have for somebody to be that guy that develops and helps you out down the road.
I absolutely agree. We're going to go to our own Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos STN Sports. He's the race and sports book director of STN Station Casinos, and they're going to talk about prop bets for rookies in the NFL. So Heidi, Chuck, take it away.
Joining us now here on the First and 10 podcast for Vegas Nation, we have the race and sportsbook director, Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos, in for his weekly segment. And of course, it is post NFL draft, which means we have a ton of things here for you to break down in terms of what Stations Casinos has posted right now. Of course, talking Raiders here, Chuck. Everybody loves to hear about some of those numbers. And the rookie running back, Ashton Jeanty, there's a couple of props up on your board for him. What can you break down about Ashton and obviously the draft pick as well? I'd love to hear your take on that and the numbers that you have for him for future bettors at Station Casinos.
Yeah, overall, Heidi, we thought the Raiders had a really good draft. I mean, I think you look at their division in the AFC West, I think they arguably had one of the best drafts. I mean, it's hard to go wrong when you pick Jeanty. This is the highest a running back has been picked in over a decade. A lot of teams were trying to trade up to get him, unsuccessfully, of course, and he's going to be a huge vocal point of that offense. The wide receiver they picked up in Jack Betch, really, really a talented wideout, too, that I think will fit in well in that offense and give Geno Smith not only Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, but you have another wideout now, and you've got a running back who's going to be polarizing. And we took advantage of that. We put some props up, post-draft props. We did some with Jeanty, with Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, but the Jeanty props were over under 999.5 yards rushing and over under 6.5 rushing TDs this year. And what makes it interesting is only one running back last year, rookie running back, was able to eclipse 1,000 yards. So, can Jeanty do that? being the vocal point of that offense? My guess is probably, and the bettors think so as well, because they bet over the touchdowns and over the yards for Genty. So it's been pretty one-sided so far from the guests and the bettors regarding that prop.
Okay, here's my favorite thing about props is that you get to take a shot at it before any of the action actually gets underway, right? So you always feel like, okay, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna be a winner. I was looking at the Super Bowl futures, and only one team seems that it's changed, and I know you want to talk about that. So please tell me about the Super Bowl futures and some of the odds that bettors can get in on.
And it's a good thing you're not scoping my entire office, because there is a lot of Bears stuff up here. I am a Bears fan, but as we've talked about in this industry, unfortunately, no favorite teams, rooting for whoever we need. But I think you look at the Bears draft, and I thought that was the best draft in the NFC North. Really gave Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, that offense, more toys in Colston Loveland at tight end and Luther Burden at wide receiver. And I think you look at the Vikings, only 5 picks, in essence, a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who didn't play at all during the regular season last year and got hurt. You look at the Lions, lose both coordinators. In many cases, a team loses one coordinator, and it's a dramatic effect on that side of the ball. They lose their offensive and defensive coordinators in Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. And then you look at the Packers, who drafted Matthew Golden, who I love at wide receiver, but now they have 5 kind of really good wide receivers, but maybe not that alpha wide receiver. And they didn't address the edge or corner, I thought, as much as they should. So I still think the Bears are the 4th best team in the North, but they've definitely narrowed the gap. And we did see an influx of bets come in, and we did lower them from 45-1 to 35-1 to win that big game in February.
Okay, now we get to talk about my favorite prop on your board right now. Who will throw a touchdown first for the Cleveland Browns?
During the regular season, you're right. Yep.
5 quarterbacks.
Well, it's, we always want to capitalize on what's kind of the hot topic and the fun sports story. So why not talk about the Cleveland Browns quarterbacks? I mean, They went in the offseason, they signed Joe Flacco, they traded for Kenny Pickett. I don't believe it'll be Watson, but he's listed anyway in case he's able to come back early from that injury. And then you've got 2 rookie quarterbacks. I mean, similar to what the Commanders did when they drafted RG3 and Kirk Cousins. Here they drafted Dylan Gabriel before they drafted Shedeur Sanders. So it'll be, again, it's which Cleveland quarterback to throw the first touchdown during the regular season for the Cleveland Browns. And the favorite is Kenny Pickett, but the second favorite happens to be Shedeur Sanders. So I think it'll be a really interesting preseason for the Browns. In only 3 games, my guess is both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur are going to have a lot of work and kind of compete against each other. So we'll see who ultimately wins that job for the Cleveland Browns.
There you have it, Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos. Chuck, football season upon us in a few months after we get through the training camps and everything. And it's just, it always feels like after the draft, like it's Christmas Day and your team gets to unwrap, their new shiny toys and see what they've got. Rookie camps, of course, coming up. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us that you have going on right now at Stations that I may have missed?
I think first I want to say, yay, sportsbooks. Football isn't that far away, and you're right. It's like Christmas for us. The draft was fun. We actually had a winning draft prop year, so that doesn't happen very often. But it's not only sports, but there's race going on, too. It's a big Kentucky Derby weekend. So
get signed up. How can I forget?
Yeah, get signed up for SDN Sports. Get the app right now, and it's one wallet. You've got both race and sports, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, all the baseball that's going on, all the great props that we talked about. And then, of course, the Oaks on Friday and the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. And if you're in one of our books for a $25 race wager, while supplies last, an official Derby T-shirt you get. So come on down, have some fun. If you can't be at Churchill, there's no better place to be than one of our sports books on the most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
But will you have mint juleps?
We will.
Okay,
we will. I expect to see you. I expect to see you.
Awesome. There you have it from Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos. He is the race and sportsbook director there, and we love having him on every week to talk about all the numbers and the action that you can get in on. Make sure to check out that app as he mentioned, STN Sports app, and head out to any of the station's locations if you've got the opportunity to, because they're all over town. Chuck, thank you again so much for the time.
All right. Thanks, Heidi.
Thanks again to Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito, the race and sportsbook director of Station Casinos. Want to talk to you about the offensive line real quick. I'm not sure you're familiar with Brandon Thorne. He does turf warfare, I think it's called. Great site for offensive linemen. He's kind of risen to sort of expert level when it comes to breaking down offensive linemen, and he did a little report on who he felt did the best along the offensive line in the NFL draft. The Raiders were, I think, second on his list. And he brought up something interesting that I want to run by you. He talked about, Caleb Rogers, the tackle who's going to move to guard from Texas Tech. He also talked, obviously, about Charles Grant, the tackle, left tackle at William & Mary. We'll see where he kind of, folds into the picture. But he brought something up interesting that I want to run by you about Caleb. He thinks he's going to start day one at left guard. He said he feels like he's going to win that job outright. Now, I don't know. There's Dylan Parham, Meredith is in the picture. Obviously, Alex Kappa. You've got basically three now. You could throw four guys into the race for two different positions. What do you think about that? And do you feel like maybe with the athletic ability and the pedigree of him, kind of fits what maybe Chip Kelly wants to do along the offensive line?
Potentially. I think that's a fit that makes a lot of sense, and I think he's going to be a solid player. I didn't see like star potential necessarily for him. I saw, hey, he might be a solid player, and he's got so much experience that I think he's not going to need a lot of time to get to where he's going to be to kind of maximize that. So it makes sense that early on he's ready. I am far more excited long term about the prospects of Charles Grant. I think he profiled again. He's more of a swing for the fences guy. He could develop into, I think, a very, very good player, and his range of outcomes is all the way down to, dominated lower competition, maybe just doesn't work out. But I think the ceiling for him is astronomical.
What is your highest ceiling for him? What position?
Well, I mean, I think eventually if he was to reach the potential that we believe he has, then it would be at left tackle.
Okay.
But I think he can play. I think he can play the right side for sure, and I think that might be. But I also like, DJ Glaze got pretty good. He had a decent year last year.
Yes.
As the year went on, I think there was some rookie mistakes, but he's a guy that's learning also. If those are the two guys that are your tackles long term, once Kolton Miller has moved on at some point from the team, I think you'd be okay with that as long as Charles Grant reaches the potential that people think he has. I believe that he could have. Again, I'm not saying he's going to reach that.
Right.
I think the range of outcomes for him is very, very big.
Okay, so you mentioned Kolton Miller conspicuously or not back at practice on Monday when the team began basically phase 2 of their workouts. He skipped the first phase of the workouts, seeking a new contract. He's going into the last year of his current contract. He's owed about $12.255 million, non-guaranteed this year. By the way, that money becomes guaranteed for veterans, vested veterans. He's one of those. First day of the, I think it's first game or first week of the first game.
Yeah.
His contract becomes guaranteed, so that will probably sort itself out. However, talking to some people, and I keep using this word emphatically, it's told to me, still no contract talks between the Raiders and Kolton Miller. But he did show up to the workouts this week. What are you reading into that?
Well, first of all, I think it's hard for Kolton to not be to be around there. In fact, I heard he was around. He just wasn't participating.
Well, correct.
There's like a gray area too. It wasn't necessarily like an avoidance.
A full on.
Right. It was like, hey, I kind of want to be around with the guys. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be like he's just so nice too. He's not going to be the guy that's going to be like a ruthless businessman out there.
That's the there's people, that work for him that do that.
So I think it was multiple parts of this. One was I don't think he wanted to be away. I don't think he wanted to be that guy, but I also think he looked around and said, oh, they drafted a couple linemen in the draft.
Exactly.
Better get in there. And as you said, like he kind of just all he really needs to do to have that money guaranteed is to make the team.
Right.
So I think
he's obviously looking for more.
Yeah, let's do everything I can to. He wants an extension and he wants more guaranteed money and all of that stuff. But as long as he makes the team, that money will become his. So I think he's looking at it and say, all right, what can I do to make sure that I'm on this roster and I'm the starting left tackle? And he's back in there.
Yeah, and I agree. And here's the thing. I do think that Pete Carroll and John Spytek have every right to say, hey, look, we want to give it a look for this year.
Yeah.
Before we start committing to another 3 years, and nothing against Kolton Miller. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to end up someplace, whether it's here or somewhere else. But they're doing things a little bit differently now. Yeah. They're asking their players to do some different things. And one of the interesting things about Kolton Miller, and I want to ask your opinion on this, he's definitely a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. How much do you think that plays into whatever maybe reservations the Raiders might have of moving forward with him?
Yeah, I think it's like they have – this is how contracts work, right? Like they've come into a contract where they're like, okay, he's here for now and we can by all rights, give him an audition year. Like, we can't do that. It's our right as a team, as an organization, and that's where his contract is. So let's see if he can adjust to what we want him to do. I think that's the way the team is feeling. We have been around to see how good of a soldier Kolton Miller has been, how important he's been in the locker room, all those things. They haven't.
Right.
And so it's different. And so I'm sure they've heard and they know the reports and they've gotten to know him a little bit, but it's within their rights to do. And I think everybody wants to say, hey, look, it's Kolton Miller. He's really earned this. Like, give an extension. Like, that's not how this works.
And the Raiders, believe it or not, but the Raiders have been not guilty of that, but they've done that in the past,
Sure.
regrettably so.
Sure.
There's been some players that a new regime comes in and immediately locks up, and then they regret it.
Let me just say this. The team that's been very successful in town, the Golden Knights, I have lauded over the years for being, and I know they don't
Cutthroat.
like this, they're heartless.
Yeah, you have to be.
They are cutthroat, they are heartless, and they win.
And look, to Adam's point, I mean, I used to work for
Marc-Andre Fleury made his last appearance last night. They threw him out the bathwater. They're like, enough,
no doubt,
out. Like, that's how it works.
And I'll say this,
that's why they won a Stanley Cup.
One of my first jobs was I worked for the LA Lakers. I got to know Jerry West really well. Jerry West would cry when he had to make trades, but he also knew this is the right thing to do. He would cry because he loved the guy.
Yeah,
but he was like, but this is the right thing to do. This is a hell of a trade for the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to do that sometimes, and that's just the nature of the business. It doesn't make anybody bad people. It just makes them smart and understanding that you, as much as you like people, there's people and there's players. There's human beings and there's your team. So I think the Raiders got caught up in that, over time, and I don't think that John Spytek or Pete Carroll are going to fall into that trap.
And that's why they have a chance to be successful.
I agree.
One of the reasons why. It's not you're not heartless and then you win.
No,
it has to be within reason. It has to be smart and wise. But all those things, yes, you can't have a heart if you want to win. I think.
Right. Okay. So we're going to get out of here in 1 second, but next week is rookie minicamp. We'll be out there. We'll have some accessibility to players. Looks like Ashton Genty, no big surprise, is going to be wearing number 2. Daniel Carlson graciously gave him that uniform number. He goes back to number 8, which is a number that he wore back in the day before Josh Jacobs decided he wanted number 8. It goes on and on and on. What are you most curious to see next week when we get a chance to see the rookies?
I mean, all the young guys for sure. But it's hard to see offensive linemen. There has been one offensive lineman through the years that we saw and said, "Oh, he's not it."
Oh yeah,
during rookie camp. For the most part, it's hard to tell how those offensive defensive linemen are going to be. But it's the skill guys. You just want to see how they get on the field, get them move around, all that sort of thing.
I want to see Darian Porter. I definitely want to see Dante Thornton. I want to see Tommy Malott. And by the way, I'm going to be talking to his college coach later on today, almost right after we tape this, about his interesting move over to wide receiver. So it's 11 players. We're probably going to have multiple eyes on them.
Sure.
You grab the offensive guys, I'll grab the defensive guys, and we'll reverse that at some point. But I'm definitely looking forward to it, as should you, and we will have a full report on what we do see next week on Vegas Nation First and 10. I want to say thank you to all of our listeners, all of our subscribers. However you digest our information, videos, photos, reading our stories, reading Adam's great columns. However you do it, we appreciate it. Continue to pass the word along. Hit like, hit subscribe, send it to a friend or a family member for a gift. It makes a great birthday gift, and Father's Day's coming up, right? So all of those things. Thank you for all you do. Thank you to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Thank you to Station Casinos, STN Sports. Thank you to Heidi Fang. We will be back at it next week. Enjoy the weekend.